Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're going to start a new assignment. So what I'd like to do is give you a little presentation on how it is that you're going to get started. First things first, our learning goal is to create a non-objective design. So that means the object is unknown to the viewer. So you're going to create a non-objective design, and primarily going to do this through the use of patterns and repetition and color, really. But the color we're not going to have as much control over. So essentially what you need to get started is this. You need a magazine, tape, just regular tape, and a ruler like this. And you don't need to read the ruler at all. You're just going to use it as a tool today. And so what you're going to do is use paper for this entire project. So you're going to get one sheet of magazine paper. You're actually going to be using an entire magazine, is my guess. Some of you will use a little more, and then some of you will use a little less. And you're going to set the magazine down like this, and you're going to use the ruler to roll the magazine really tightly, like this, around. You're going to use the paper and roll it right around the magazine, like this. And I'm trying to keep it really, really tight, because in the end, your project will come out better. Once you've rolled it around the magazine like that, you can kind of flatten out the edges, and then you take a piece of tape. You can tape it right here, this. And then the rulers, because they're kind of slippery, the paper will just easily slide right off. And then what you get is this kind of like tube piece of paper. And then I always kind of take it and flatten it out. So that will be the first step, is to get a whole bunch of these. And then ultimately, once you have a collection of these that you've made over, a day or more, you will take these and then you will start to roll them together. So I'm going to take this, and what I want to do ultimately is create a huge roll of them. So I have to start with a little roll. So I'm going like this, and I'm basically just rolling the paper up. So I'm going to pause and zoom in so you can kind of see what's happening here. So I'm creating a little roll. And while I roll, I really want to keep this as tight as possible. The tighter you can keep this paper together, the better your project's going to be. So I roll it like this. And I've got my project started right there. And then what I'll do is I'll take a second piece of paper. I'll make sure it's flat. And I'll take a piece of tape, real small. These pieces of tape do not need to be big at all. In fact, this is about 1 inch long, and it's still a little big. And I'm going to take my next piece and simply tape it to the first piece, like so. The first couple that you tape are the most challenging. After that, this becomes bigger, so it's easier to handle and manage. And then I roll the second piece of paper up. Like that. So my project keeps getting bigger and bigger. And then of course I repeat the process. So then I grab another piece of paper, another little piece of tape, and tape those together. And then I continue the process. Like that. And then I go on and on and on. And eventually what you'll get is something about this size. And then ultimately, when this gets over a course of a couple of days, this will get bigger. And then what we'll do is we'll start to create a non-objective design out of this. And then you can kind of push a side in, and then you can manipulate this a little bit. So it will show more of the paper, and it will create an interesting non-objective design using patterns and repetition, as I stated earlier. And then ultimately, you'll get something that maybe looks like that for display, which is pretty cool. Okay, The one thing I want to mention before you tear into it is that when you get to about this point, you don't want the middle to fall out. So if you play around with it too much and you push this through and this falls out, oftentimes you have to start over completely. So we want to avoid that because that's a drag. All right, so without further ado, when I say go, you can grab a ruler and a magazine and tape, and you can start rolling up your pieces of magazine paper. That's your very first step. Go.